I'm Elizabeth McNally, and I am the Ward Professor and Director for the Center for Genetic Medicine here at Northwestern. So personalized therapies mean a lot of different things. For me, I'm a geneticist, and so for us what we're seeing right now is just increasing genetic diagnosis. And we see that in three big areas, which are cardiovascular. I'm a cardiologist, so I'm a little biased. So we do a lot of genetic testing in cardiology. We also see this strongly impacting a lot of different cancer phenotypes, and that's both in terms of inherited cancers as well as how cancers have different genetic profiles. And then we also see it in neurological diseases where we're increasingly making genetic diagnoses. And every time we make a genetic diagnosis, that's personalized medicine in action. I think genetics will affect every single person, not just in terms of diseases, but also in terms of traits as we understand more and more of what the genome does. Right now, the lowest hanging fruit is to understand genetic diseases. And in particular, we tend to focus on genetic diseases that affect younger people because they have a stronger genetic influence. As we go through our lifespan and we have more experiences, then genetics and environment start to take on an intermingled dance with each other. And so you see stronger environmental influences over time. But genetics affects every single person. There have been a number of breakthroughs. I think hundreds of years from now, when people look back at this time, they will really recognize this as a really important era for understanding human genetics. The first important discovery was really just PCR, and that was around the mid-'80s because it allowed us to rapidly get to DNA sequences. The next huge breakthrough was next-generation sequencing because it allowed us to rapidly get to those DNA sequences and compare person to person. But now we're seeing induced pluripotent stem cells so we can model diseases. And then in the last 3 years, it's been gene editing, and that's moving along at just breakneck pace. So not only can we diagnose genetics, but we're looking at the future where we can change it.
Hi, I'm Jim Sullivan, and I'm Vice President of Global Pharmaceutical Discovery at AbbVie, a biopharmaceutical company here in Chicago. We use a variety of approaches. We are collaborating with investigators around the world to leverage genetics, human genetics, whereby we sequence the entire genomes of thousands of patients with various diseases. It could be cancer, Alzheimer's disease, multiple sclerosis. And we compare the sequence of those genomes to a controlled sample, healthy individuals. That allows us to identify potential mutations in genes that are causative or contributing to the development of the disease. So that's how genetics helps us identify better approaches to the treatment of a variety of diseases. We then use technologies such as gene editing to help us in our research to accelerate the discovery of small molecules or large molecules that can be safe and effective to go into clinical testing. This is an incredibly exciting time to be working in the biopharmaceutical industry. If we just look back over the last 5 to 6 years, our industry has advanced innovative new treatments for patients with a variety of cancers. We've prolonged survival from a matter of months to years in some cases. Cystic fibrosis is another disease, devastating disease, where new treatments have emerged that are having a remarkable impact in patients. In autoimmune diseases, we have treatments that are allowing patients with psoriasis to have nearly complete skin clearance. Patients with Crohn's disease, a devastating disorder of your gut, to live much healthier and more fuller lives.
Tom Shanley. I serve as the Chair of Pediatrics at Lurie Children's Hospital, as well as the President and Chief Research Officer at the Stanley Manny Children's Research Institute here at Lurie. I work as a pediatrician in the intensive care unit, and so many of the technologies that we utilize in patient care have advanced substantially. So examples of those would include organ support. So concepts like extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, where we can support the heart and the lung, advances in mechanical support of the heart, as well as advances in the mechanical support of the kidneys during acute kidney injury. Those are some of the mechanical support mechanisms that are new to the field. I think in addition, We have a number of advances in terms of diagnostics, so obviously genomics and proteomics has been a major advance. Some of the work that we'll talk about tonight is how gene expression profiling using large arrays of transcriptomes have allowed us to delineate some of the mechanisms that we think are critical to the host's interaction with pathogens during severe infections. I certainly think the biggest breakthrough continues to be the sequencing of the human genome, as well as the advances in the technology that's allowed us to reduce the cost of sequencing of the genome. I think the other area that's now exploding is we used to think everything was controlled by the genes and the DNA, and we now know that the whole field of epigenomics, what's happening on top of the DNA, also affects the way that the DNA is expressed and molecules are made by the body. So these two fields, I think, have really transformed where we're going with tailored medicine or precision medicine. I think the most promising thing for the future of pediatric care is the emerging technologies around what we describe as omic medicine, so clearly the DNA and the genomic component of that. But when we think about being able to also look at the species of proteins in a proteomic way, as well as transcriptomic with RNA species, and then really bringing data together. So those are large arrays of data that we have to bring together with clinical phenotyping and in some cases real-time physiologic streaming. So I think the opportunities to aggregate all those data on a meaningful analytic platform that allows for advanced and personalized clinical decision making will be what the future of pediatric medicine is.